By the end of this video, you will have an unlimited amount of revive items, upgraded weapons, new armor, and the ability to steal anything and everything you could ever need. Let's go. So we're going to start right from here, which is the very beginning of chapter 2, because the way that I see it is that in chapter 1, where you first arrive, in Hernand and you go through that initial process, is still kind of part of the tutorial because you get the glider and the Axiom Force abilities. So I do recommend that you do that first before you do anything else, because you will need the glider for basically everything from that point onwards, because it just makes traversal so much easier. So the first thing that we're going to do here, rather than start our chapter 2, which is to send us to the Lioncrest Watchtower, is return back the way we came from where you initially spawn. Now, if you're watching this video right from the very start and you have actually just spawned like next to that lake, you'll be able to do this first as the item is still there. But we're going to head back this way, as one of the best items in the game is actually right near where you spawn, kind of interestingly. So we're just going to sprint back this way. But the first thing we're going to do on the way actually is pick up the fast travel point for Hernand Castle, because there is a fast travel point right here. And if we just stand on this block, this will unlock a fast travel point right near the Hernand Castle, which is really beneficial because you will be traveling back to this area, like this castle, so much throughout the early stages of the game. So having this fast travel point here will absolutely make a difference. Now we're going to head back over to, I think it's about here, which is where you initially spawn. While we are standing on this fast travel point, by the way, if you ever want to know where some of these fast travel points are, or even just sealed abyss artifacts, you can use your blinding flash. We saw a flash over there, and you move your camera around and there's another one right over there. So we might actually head over there and pick that up. But basically this will show you where you can find either abyss artifacts or any of the fast travel points by that little flash. There you go. You see it there. And there was one over there actually up on that hill too. But that one right there is the one that we're going to go to on our way to picking up our actual main item that we're going to get here. So we'll run this way. We may as well summon our horse once we get back onto this track as well. Which you can do just up on the D-pad. Easiest way to summon it rather than actually bringing up the whole reticle wheel. So here we are right at this point. Now, if we use Blinding Flash, you can see that it's coming from this thing here. So if we walk up and click on this, is a sealed, come on Cliff, there we go, sealed abyss artifact. And what this is basically a skill point that you'll need to do a particular activity in order to actually unlock. So Sword of Trials, defeat 3 enemies within 30 seconds using a sword. Basically, next time we run into some enemies, if we kill 3 of them within 30 seconds, we get a skill point. So you do want to keep an eye out for those sealed abyss artifacts and pick them up. They'll then just be in your inventory while you're carrying them, so you can always check to see what they were. So I've already got one here already, which is the Shield of Unchanging Will. Bring 3 enemies crashing in like a tide to their knees with a single swing of your shield. So I've already got 2 here that you basically just need to do these and you'll get a free skill point for doing so. But our main focus here, actually, we probably don't even need to be on the horse because we do have the glider. We can just yeet ourselves off the edge here. Now, you may remember that this is actually where you start at the very beginning of the game. And from here, well, not the very beginning, after you do wake up, we actually want to cross to this other side over here, because this is where you'll find the best item in the game, basically, that will make you invincible. So we're going to run across this bridge, or water. And then just keep moving into this cliff face. You'll actually notice a small little gap here, very similar to Aragon, heading in to pick up the army of the dead. None shall suffer the living to pass. Now, in this little Shadows Whisper cave, there are some interesting things where we can just have a look at this cauldron so that we can learn about cauldrons. But the main thing we're looking for is actually over here. It's this alchemy formula for Palmer Pill. And interestingly, you'll find 2 of them next to this. Now, we will want to examine this so you can learn how to craft it. All you do need is 15 medicinal herbs and 2 water. Medicinal herbs are everywhere, and it's just any type, so it's super easy to craft. There's also 2 armor pills right next to it, so we'll pick up both of those. What is that? I think that's dye. Is that dye? That is bright yellow dye. So when you do find dyes, by the way, if you do want to actually dye your armor later, you can actually use it, and then you'll learn how to use that color of dye. Now that we have got those, you can come over here to this cauldron And we could craft some Palmer pills if we did actually have the required resources and materials, which is those medicinal herbs and water, which we don't actually have with us right now. One thing I want to note is anytime you bring up these menus for the first time, you'll learn a ton of stuff. You should absolutely do that and let that happen, so you'll learn a lot of these things. You don't have to pick them up in the world. But basically what we're looking for here, if we have a look, is some one of these different materials. So it could be rosemary, lavender, cotton, etc., 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 etc. Any of these, which is basically more or less all the basic herbs in the game. You just need 15 of them and 2 water. Now, what that item does, the Palmer pill, is every time you die, you be able to use one to summon yourself back alive with 30% health, essentially. So it's essentially a free restore item and revive. Now, the benefit is that because you can craft as many as you can essentially just revive yourself in any boss encounter as many times as you like. So now that we're here and we've done this, there's one other thing that I do want to show you in this little area. It's actually up on this cliff face. So we might climb up here. Here's a little trick for you that it doesn't work too well in the early game because you don't have a lot of movement in the air. But what you can do is attach your Axiom Force to a tree and you can actually pull the tree. And eventually you'll see the high jump pop up, and then so we can jump in the air. Now, not too beneficial because we can't actually get a lot of distance here when we don't have much stamina in this early game, and we're just going to fall back down. But definitely beneficial to use in sort of the mid-game and beyond when you've got a bit more aerial fluidity and stamina, so you can get yourself a bit more movement in a lot of these areas that have a lot of verticality, because you will have a lot of areas in the game that do have verticality, alike in Hernand down there. We just want to climb up here because there is a mining ore spot up here that we're just going to grab on our way past. Actually, I don't think I've even picked up a pickaxe yet, have I? I have not. Never mind, we won't pick up this. But you can see here that there's some iron ore deposits that we could pick up if I did have a pickaxe, which I haven't actually grabbed yet. But we're going to climb up this cliff face because I'm going to show you where you can grab a sword. If you don't like the initial starting sword that you do get, there is one that is decent enough in this early game just up here by doing a very easy puzzle. One thing to note is when you see a waterfall, don't jump in the waterfall because it will actually push you forward. So do go around the waterfall, as you can get knocked off cliffs by jumping in waterfalls. That's happened to me a couple of times and it's not very fun. Also, your horse will get knocked in the water as well. Okay, Cliff, fair enough. We'll yeet ourselves over this way so we don't get stuck in the current. But yeah, so you will remember that bridge from crossing it as you do enter into Hernand. But right directly across from that is this location here, where you'll see this statue, and then inside here is actually a chest. Now, in order to open the gates, you'll see this statue has 2 candles next to it. If we light both of these candles...
Turn on the ring of fire. The ring of fire! Oh, you said you could do it. The ring of fire!
Inside this chest, you will find a Legionnaire's Gladius. So a unique sword for this little location that you can grab early. Now, this sword is different to your initial starting sword as it does come with attack speed +1. So it is slightly better, even though the damage is the same. Regardless of whether you're using that initial starting sword or this one, it's really up to you, whichever one you prefer, because they are mostly the same other than just that slight difference. But we are going to upgrade that sword very soon. So regardless of which one you're using, whether you come here and grab this one or you stick with the wolf sword, which you will change out eventually as there is some much better gear later on, we're going to upgrade our overall damage just to improve how we go in these early stages of the game. Now, you could just travel back here as the way we came, but just to show you how fast travel works, if you use that Abyss Nexus that we did pick up before, you can then just fast travel back to it by teleporting. And here we are back at this location. Now, you can see that there's a couple of apples in this tree, which we may as well grab on our way past. I don't think I can reach that one. That's a bit higher. I have to actually climb the tree to get it, because we will use these a little bit later. You can actually buy them, and we will probably buy a couple, but we may as well just grab those, considering they are right there. Now, as we make our way back to town, you'll notice these yellow flowers here, which are marigolds. Now, we will want to pick up as many of these as we can, because we're going to use them to craft our Palmer pill items for our revives. So we'll pick these up. Now, because we did pick that cauldron earlier when we were in that cave and we learnt about these flowers just while we had the menu up, we will know what flowers these are already, because we haven't picked up these already. As you can see, like with certain items, the first time you pick them up, they will actually have question marks. So that does help you have a bit of an understanding of what you're actually looking for without having to pick up unneeded things. But we need 15 marigold for 1 Palmer pill. Lavender also works, but there's not actually enough lavender here. I found marigolds to be one of the easiest ones to find just because they are everywhere in Hernand and they're quite easy to spot because of their big yellow flowers. So if you are looking for like what ones to use, marigolds are just often easier to find because of the giant yellow bulbs on top. So you won't have too much trouble actually locating them. All right, well, we picked up basically all of the marigolds that were here. How many did we get? We got 34. That's enough for 2. Amazing. So we can then run into town and start out the next part of our journey, which is to do some cooking and crafting, which you don't necessarily have to do right now, but I always just prefer to do this early. And every time you return to Hernand, it's always good to get into the habit of doing this because you will very much need healing items and revive items for a lot of the difficult bosses and encounters. So this vendor right here, if we have a little chat to this gentleman, he will sell you a lot of general food and other ingredients. So hovering over all of these is something you should do the first time that you do open any vendor, so you actually know what you're potentially going to buy, as it will tell you about them. But one of the things we're here for is water. So we're going to buy, let's buy 4 waters. Barley is also another thing we're going to buy here because we can use that for our crafting items. And we are short on money, so let's just quickly go here and sell. Now, we have learnt how to use the Palmer pill. We don't actually need the recipe anymore, so you can actually sell that for some silver. Same with this other one that we did pick up. I'm carrying this shield that I found earlier in chapter 1 and this fruit fly that a kid gave me, so we can just get rid of that and we'll sell these lavenders as well. So that does give us a bit of cash. So buy these oats as well, but the barley and the oats are the main ones that I want to buy, and water as well is quite important to grab. May as well buy all the water, actually. Now, we're going to come back over to this vendor over here, which actually does have a quest for us in a little bit. But from her, we can actually buy meat. In this very early stage of the game, when you've basically got like copper and silver, you haven't got a whole lot of silver, you won't necessarily be buying out all of these vendors. Or you could actually just go out into the world and, you know, farm animals and get them yourself. But I'm lazy and that does take a little bit of work, but over here we will have the cooking station, which we will click on. Now, in the grilled cooking, you'll be able to make just some basic fruits and grains, etc. And the further you get into the game, the more recipes and things you will actually learn and unlock. Alternatively, you can also improvise ingredients. Like, so you can say add a fruit and a meat and make them together. So if you just happen to know a recipe without having to find it in the world, when you do use that and make something, you will actually craft that recipe even without knowing it. So what we did make there was braised meat. Now you can make braised meat with 1 fruit and 1 meat. So yeah, if we have a look here individually, we have a meat that on its own, say if we were to grill it singularly, it would give us health plus 80. However, if we combine 3 of them, it gives us health plus 120 for 3. However, if you use math, 120 health for 3 meats is actually less than 80 times 3, which is 160, what, 240. My God, math is hard. 240 for lean meats, right? So essentially here, what you'd want to do is either craft in just this initial scenario where you're crafting meats, you're better off actually just creating the modest grilled meat individually rather than turning it into grilled meat, because plus 120 is less than, say, for each one individually, you get plus 80. So you could then spam all 3 to get 80, 160, 240 health back, if you know what I mean. But ultimately, we can actually just combine these two, right? And then that'll give us the braised meat, which we did make before. And then we get that little bit of recipe insight. So if we created one more, we would actually learn the recipe there. But braised meat is great because all it costs you is 1 meat and 1 fruit, but it gives you spirit and health. So it's really great to grab, right? An apple only gives you plus 2 spirit on its own, and the meat that we're using gives you plus 40 on its own uncooked, whereas combining them, you get 120 health and 10 spirit. So it's a good combination to use, which spirit you'll use for a lot of your unique attacks in combat, and then health is obviously your health. And so I've found that just combining these two, especially in the early game, is just an easy one to make. We've just added 1 too many fruits. 1 braised meat. Fantastic. Recipe acquired. About knowledge. Braised meat. So if we go back into this menu, You'll see here in our list of foods somewhere. There it is. It's in this other tab. Of course it is. Modest braised meat. So now we actually know how to make this recipe. So we don't have to go into the improvise anymore. We can just do it directly from there. But definitely one of the best early game healing items, as mentioned, for that extra health and spirit. But we've pretty much made all that we need here. So now that we've got a fair few of these, which you could obviously create more, and every time you come back to Henan, I do recommend to spend time at the cooking station to create more. Now here with the barley and the oats that we bought, we could actually combine them as well to say create some hearty oats or whatever you prefer here, but we may as well do this just to get some other healing items from what we've got. Cool. So that'll do us from an explanation perspective. So now that we're leaving here, we do have 5 braised meat, which we can then use, and a couple of other items for our healing items. So we've made those hearty toasted grains and then the braised meat as well, which is probably the main one that you'll use in the early game, in my opinion, just to give you both spirit and health. Now, the next thing that we want to do is with the water that we picked up before is run this way in town. This house right here, the one that has this on it, we can enter in here. Now, inside this house, something to note is that in any house, things that you walk in, basically everything is steel except recipes. So if you do see recipes located on your map, just find a way to get into that house and you'll be able to take it without actually stealing, because picking up recipes, reading them, keeping them isn't stealing, even if it's in someone's house for whatever reason. So you will want to do that just to fill out your recipe books. And this is for wine and a little elixir, which we won't necessarily need either of these at the moment. There is some amazing elixirs you can get later on that can increase your maximum health, maximum stamina, all sorts of things. But there's a cauldron here in town, which is the reason that we came in here, so we can create those Palmer pills. We tab across the special items here, and we've got the Palmer pill that we learned the recipe for, the marigolds we picked up, and the water that we bought. We can actually then craft, confirm. Then we've got 2 more of our revive items. There we are. We got 2 more Palmer pills. So here we've got, how many have we picked up? We've got 5 from the one you start with, and then the 2 extra ones that we got from the cave. So we've got 5 essentially revive items. Next, we can really start actually sending ourselves out on a bit of a journey and questing. However, the first thing that I would do before we actually really invest in that is to run all the way up here to the very top of town where the prison cells are. Because we will want to get a mask so we can actually unlock stealing for ourselves. And easily, the best way to do that is by picking up this first bounty from Pedro. Cool. So we can then grab this notice for Jeffrey. A bit of a read. Fantastic. We've unlocked that. We'll just learn about how bounty notices work. That's fine. There's actually a recipe over here that we will pick up as well for a fish bowl soup. Even if you never plan to actually make the recipes you are picking up, it is worthwhile doing so just to learn them, and then also then to just sell the recipe back to a vendor. Cool. So now that we have picked up that for Jeffrey, if memory serves, Jeffrey is located somewhere down this way. You can see on the map the little icon for Jeffrey. Here he is. Let's tackle the man. Oh, he stole my money. We've got him. Just give him a couple of little punches. When you're in this menu here, pay attention to the right hand side, as initially you'll only be able to hit them. You'll need to hit them a couple of times. Often, yep, 1 more punch for our man Jeffrey here. And now there is a tie up option. You do want to make sure you tie them up, as depending on the bounty, when you do pick them up, you will either gain more of the reward for actually keeping them alive compared to like actually killing them by punching them to death, which you can accidentally do. So do be careful when you are in that menu. Now, because we are carrying Jeffrey, we'll walk a little bit slower here. So we might just bring our teleporting horse in. And then we can run back. Fantastic. We arrive back here. We can then drop Jeffrey off. Fantastic. We got some silver, and we also got a contribution to Henan. As you notice, we have a 2 up there in the top right. And we also unlocked the mask. So the Henan contribution we'll cover in a little bit, but the main thing that I want to talk about first here is the mask itself. So if we just enter this house, which is locked, fantastic. That's Great for this explanation. Cool. This axe says steal, but you'll notice we can't actually steal it because it's grayed out. Now that we have unlocked a mask by pressing left on the D-pad, you can bring up your radial wheel, which you'll use quite often. In this little column here, you'll be able to equip the mask, which gives you criminal behavior. Now we can actually steal that axe if we were planning on it, but maybe not in front of the prison. That's maybe not the best idea. However, just to show you things that you can steal, if we come down this way, there's a very specific house that we can enter that has something that we want in it. This one right here, we're just going to zoom in here into the Bluemont Manor, climb these stairs, and enter into this room here. Luckily, there's no one in here, and you'll notice this strong box that we can open. Now, by opening this strong box, you will need to then essentially do a lock-picking mini game, more or less, but you'll just need to spin these around. There we go. Now we can open the strong box, and because we have our mask on, we can actually steal this little box. Now you will see that we lost a bit of reputation there, as well as the crime being noticed. But basically all we need to do is open these windows and jump out through here. Outside that window. And we are all good. Now, we have a look inside. This box that we opened, we got the Oath of Darkness, which is an earring that gives us +2. You could also sell it for some silver, but it's essentially just giving us +2 defense. You will take you quite a while to actually get earrings and these sort of equipment in the game, and doing this very early just gives you a flat increase to your defense for basically no punishment, as you can see from what we did there. Now that we've got the earring, we can then pick up some additional quests. Now, if we run over here, there is a bounty that we can grab. Excuse me, guard. Apologies. Or Blix. But Blix is located pretty far away, actually, so we won't worry about doing that. There is another one in Hernand that we can do if we do find the bounty itself. But I did want to come over to these gentlemen here because, one, they are a shop. You'll spend a lot of time at these shops and then sell these recipes that we've picked up. The reason that you will spend a bit of time at this shop is because this gentleman will sell you the one-hand weapons of the world that you could buy if you wanted to, say, craft different swords. Though these first ones I wouldn't worry too much about. You're better off refining the swords we already have. But also, once you have beaten a boss in Chapter 3, he will sell you that full set of armor from that boss called Matthias. So once you have done that, do make sure you come back here to buy that armor. But the main reason we want to talk to this guy here is not only just to sell those couple of things we had, but also to listen to his request. Fantastic. He gives us a free pickaxe, and it's also essentially a tutorial on how the ore mining works, which we will do in a moment. But we're also going to have a chat to this smithy. Now, this smithy is another gentleman you spend a lot of time at for actually refining your gear, not necessarily the actual crafting of gear, as you won't do a ton of this in the early game, even when you have bought that one-handed book and the other book that is in the shop next door. For the most part, you're here for the refinement, because you can see with this Legionnaire's Gladius that we have, refining it once will give us +2 to our overall damage. Now, if we say, look at our Sword of the Wolf, it's exactly the same. It'll give you a +2. There's a slight difference here in that sword that we did pick up. Ultimately, the damage is the same, except the one that we did pick up, the Legionnaire's Gladius, gives us that attack speed difference.
You're welcome at my smithy anytime.
So we are going to grab the request from him as well. One of the reasons to do these is because they give you the tool for free. Now, it'll actually just, essentially it's a glorified tutorial on how these systems work, but getting the tool for free just saves you having to buy them. I will show you where you can buy them once he has finished talking. Fantastic. Right, we got the logging axe as well. Something I will do is just actually put this armor on just because it looks a bit better. I'm not a fan of how that initial armor looks, and we can take off our mask because we don't need it. But if you want to buy tools in this shop directly opposite, you can talk to this gentleman here, and you can buy essentially any and all of the tools in the game, even ones that you haven't actually unlocked the ability to do yet, right? Like shovels and fishing and mallets, etc., and all the farming ones. But they're relatively cheap. They only cost you a little bit of copper. So if you don't want to do these initial quests, though I do recommend that you do, but you can see here he's got a list of all sorts of other housing items as well. So now that we've picked up those quests, we also picked up a couple of bounties as we were just walking through town for some other bounties to be done. Notices here for Billy and for Bianca, who are actually located in Hernand Castle here, but they're actually not around at the moment. Really, we're going to be going down here to log some wood as well as pick up some ore is our next main objective. Something I wanted to call out is that during the review period when this was recorded, Perlibis tweaked the inventory system based on our feedback. So now you have an additional amount of starting inventory slots. It went from 20 to 50. Inventory expansion items can now actually be purchased from certain vendors. They'll have small bags you can buy, which will give you 1 additional inventory slot. And then there are 5 additional inventory slots granted at certain points in the story now, along with the already existing medium bags that you can get from certain requests and side quests that will give you 3 additional inventory slots. So overall, a really positive change. And they did also tell us that in a future update, a housing feature will provide additional storage functions as well. So it will be improved after that point as well. But back to the original video. By the way, at this little small castle, there's actually a treasure map here that you can grab. Have a little of a peek at. More marigolds down here if you did want to pick those up. But we are on our way to log some wood. We might actually bring our horse. By the way, as we're moving past here, if you have a look here, if you do pick up animals, as in like literally pick them up, you can take them to this animal fence here and he will buy them off you. Ah, that's Bianca right there. What is she doing? I don't know why she's down here, but for some reason she's down here. So we'll give her a couple of hits and we may as well take her back to the guard. Go and grab our horse and we'll just travel back up to the cells and drop her off. I'll show you something else you can do here with this gentleman once we do come back as well. But let's go drop Bianca off first. We want that Hernand contribution more than we want the silver actually at this point. An hand contribution is a great way to get some better gear in the early game without actually costing you silver. So always pay attention to the map here. On the mini map on the right hand side, you can see this purple banner. This is a bounty here, but it'll always be something to pick up. That's for Warren. I thought we already picked up Warren, but let's run down here and find good old Billy. Here he is. Hello, Billy. 3 punches, and now we can tie him up. I love how the guards just watch, like they just know that this is acceptable behavior. All right. Fantastic. That's 3 bounties done. More contribution, more silver, everything's going great. Now, if we have a look here in the journal, you'll obviously see our main quest here. But if you have a look at faction quests, you can see for Hernand, we have 3 unlocked. These will expand the further you get in the game. But in House Celeste is where you'll actually be able to see the outlaws. There's 9 in this region, and we've done 3 of them. The region of Hernand is actually really large. Like some of these bounties will take you we've already got a couple of them that are going to take you way down here. So do keep in mind that, you won't be able to do all of these at the very, very start of the game, and just, be patient with completing all of those bounties, as they will send you pretty far into some dangerous territories. But we're going to go back and do our other quests that we had planned to do now. Another thing to note while we're on our journey here is that we did pick these quests up from this bounty board here. The bounty board will have additional quests as you progress through the game. Different boards will as well. And different quests will open up as you just progress throughout the game as well. As you can see, if you look at our map here, this gentleman wants to talk to us for a quest about House Roberts, which is actually the house that we just stole from. So he wasn't there a second ago because of our stealing, but he is back there. So you can talk to him and do that quest, which is a decent quest chain. And you do actually get an amulet like the one that we just stole. I think it's actually exactly the same, but you have to do that full quest chain in order to get the amulet, whereas you could just nick it out of the lockbox like we did. Why don't we show how the animal fencing works as we're just on our way here. Is there an animal around here that we could steal? We put our mask on real quick. We just steal this chicken. Now, people did witness our crimes, but all we have to do is walk out of this little circle and we're fine. Everything's all good. We can bring this chicken down here. Fantastic. It was a chicken, so it's not really worth that much, but just by doing that, we got 8 copper. Now, this gentleman is the one that I wanted to show you, by the way. So if we have a chat to him and go buy, he will sell you just a blanket key. Now, these keys can be used to open any locked door that doesn't require a very specific key. Now, also something else to note about this vendor is you can buy masks from him. You can buy prison keys. You can also buy disguises if you say wanted to blend in because you're committing quite a lot of crimes, that sort of thing. But you can buy different things as well as a fine fishing rod, poison arrows. He does have quite a good inventory. I wouldn't buy this, by the way, even though it is quite expensive. It is a fantastic thing, but you won't be able to put it on your gear for quite a while, and you can actually get a weapon by completing a main story not too far in the future that'll just already have that on it. So the key that we did buy, now what we can do with that key is if we come back into the town and go to just any locked home, you'll be able to open that door with that blanket key. There you go. Used a key to open the door. So that key that we bought has allowed us to enter this person's home. They are actually home. We can greet them. We could do whatever. What he wanted to say is do some nefarious activities, like, say, stealing anything that they have and opening all of their drawers. Now that we're in the home, we can do that. But a lot of these civilian homes, you will find that they're locked. So say if we have an example is this one here, we can't actually open it. But that key a key is required. So the key that we bought from the fence, we did have another one, we'd be able to open that door. So if you are looking to do some nefarious activities, that is the easiest way to do so, is just by buying those keys. You will get them off bandits occasionally when you defeat them out in the world. If you loot them, sometimes they'll drop you keys. They can actually drop you a mask as well if you didn't already have one. But it's an easy way to just loot some people's homes if you're looking for some easy coin. Right, back on our original mission here, which was actually to go and wood cut. Fantastic. So now that we're here, we can bring up the left D-pad radial wheel and find our logging axe. We bring it up again, actually equip it. There we go. And then we can knock down some trees. Break it up into pieces. Break it up again. You'll get the timber and the fine timber. Now we only need 3 of these, so we only just have to knock down 1 tree. However, if you wanted to knock down more trees, you could get enough timber to improve your shield, though I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about your shield at this early stage of the game. We're under attack by something, apparently. Oh, it's a... I see. It is... a fly. Bee. What are they called? Bees. Alright, never mind. There must have been a hive attached to that tree. Alright. In this little hut, by the way, there is another sealed... let's put that away. Sealed Abyss artifact, which we will pick up. Sharpened spear. Hit enemies 50 times with a spear within 30 seconds. That will take us a bit of time. But that's not really what we're looking to do. We're going to go over here and actually do the mining. Now, conveniently, there are enemies here just on our way. So hopefully we can actually unlock one of our Abyss artifacts that we've picked up, and we can have a chat about some skills. By the way, you can press down on the D-pad to lock on to targets. Not super useful in the group combat like this, but when you're just fighting one enemy, like a boss, or in that case where we're just fighting that one enemy, definitely can be useful. Cool, so we unlocked the sealed artifact. This will give us an Abyss core, which you can slot into gear to give you additional bonuses. There is a specific person you need to talk to in order to learn about that, but that's for later down the line. The main reason that we wanted to worry about that is because it will actually give us the skill point. Or maybe that one actually only had the Abyss core in it, as some of them only have Abyss cores. But even still, here is some skill points I prepared earlier. So from here, when you're looking at the tree, there's a couple of additional things to think about. In the early game, like, I wouldn't be spending too much time actually leveling out any of these individual skills other than, like, say, your basic armed combat or the skills you're using quite regularly. The main thing I would be focusing on is leveling up your health and then secondarily your stamina. Stamina is that resource that you see pop up when you sprint. It also uses that when you do a heavy attack. It uses a ton of stamina. Heavy attacks are fantastic to break shields, which you'll use quite regularly. It doesn't actually use stamina when you use a light attack. But the first thing that I would be focusing on would be health and then stamina, and then worrying about a lot of those skills later. So we will get 1 health here and we'll get 1 stamina. And as you can see, now we've got that little extra white bar on our stamina. We have a little bit of extra stamina there. Put that weapon away. May as well loot these bleed bandits. Cloth pieces, fantastic news. There's an axe there we can take that one of them we're using. Oh, lantern, interesting. Lanterns aren't worth much, and a bundle of arrows, which we don't need either. Cool. Let's head back over here to this iron deposit. What we can do here is grab our pickaxe. By the way, there is a better pickaxe. It's also a two-handed weapon that you can get pretty early in the game that I will cover in my early game things to grab video. So if you do want to watch that, I will link that later in this video, or even link it here, depending on how good I am at remembering that I did talk about this at this one specific point. Who knows? Maybe there is a card here, but if you want to get that weapon, it is actually really good. I will link that for you guys to go and watch that video as well. Cool. Now that we have destroyed all of these iron deposits, we can actually pick up our iron ore, which will be on the ground here. Did get a fair few, actually, little iron deposits, which is nice. Sometimes you don't get many. Seems like we got quite lucky there. Now, these nodes here, like this location, you can see it's now marked on my mini-map in front of me. It'll actually be marked on your map overall too, if we do change it to all. We zoom all the way in, you'll be able to see that there is an iron deposit there. Now, that will respawn over time. So if you come here, say, tomorrow or another day, that will actually respawn and you'll be able to get those iron deposits again. Now, we will make sure that we go into, into commissions and pick that because we are going over to this location. On our way, actually. I don't remember if it's up this one or the next one, but we may as well climb this one just in case it is this one. Cool. And then up here, you'll see there are these glowing plants, which you do want to avoid as they will damage you. But beyond those plants, you will find this, which is an Abyss Crescent, which will give you an Abyss Artifact for a skill point. Mission complete. Fantastic. We did acquire an item. Ah, that's the one that we had before, actually, too. There we go. Cool. Have a look at our skill points. We now have 2 additional skill points. Let's put them both into health. But the other thing I wanted to note about these ones specifically, which, you know, previously, if we were using our little blinding flash, this would have shown up. As you can see, something over there showed up, and then there was one over there. I thought I saw a flash. Ah, there. But this would have shown up as well. But the other thing to note about this location is even though it wasn't technically a fast travel point, it actually does become one. So now that we have discovered it, you'll be able to see this Abyss Crescent is teleportable. So you can teleport to here. So it is a fast travel point, even though it wasn't one of those ones that we stood on. So they are still well worth getting, even if they're not necessarily just a stand on and grab, because you will want to fast travel a fair bit. You will travel a lot in this game, especially to this location, as you will be up on that hill over there. Put our weapon away. That hill up there for certain things later on. All right, here's the assistant. Let's chat to this gentleman. Hand over. I like how he says his forge, even though he's the assistant. I don't think it's his forge. Fantastic. All right, that's handed in. So we're going to return to this gentleman here. We can actually sell the damaged gear that we picked up. We can sell the Becca axe that we picked up. We can sell this butterfly. I don't know why the people are yelling behind us. We can figure that out later. And that's basically all that we want to sell. Oh, we can sell this stone too. We don't need stone. Cool, fantastic. Where did those people go? Why were they yelling? Who knows? All right. But we do want to talk to the smithy while we are here. Hand over the timber that he wanted. Fantastic. He gave us some timber. He gave us a shield and a whole bunch of other stuff. So now we can go here. We can chat to this gentleman. We can go... not crafting, we can go refinement. Now, because we picked up all of that iron ore, we can actually improve our Legionnaire's Gladius, which we can then click on and go refine. This will improve its overall damage. In the early game, I wouldn't be investing too much time into doing this in, say, maxing out anything, like leveling out all of its refinement, as you will require some Abyss artifacts and a few other things to do so. It's really just these first levels that just cost you iron ore. Like, there's no reason you shouldn't do this because it just gives you a flat damage increase. Right now, we just need a bit of extra copper ore. What a shame we don't have any copper ore to get it to that next level. But if we just talk to this gentleman right here, we need one of those. And we need 2 of these. How convenient. We can then go back, use the smithy, refine. We can then improve this to its next level. So basically increasing our overall damage by 4, which doesn't sound like much, but when the weapon originally did, say, 12 damage, and now it does 16, it's actually a pretty decent increase to your overall effectiveness in the early game. We also did get that timber from him. Now, ultimately, whether you want to improve, say, the Becca shield that you get here, which gives you attack speed and movement speed, or the Grey Wolf one is entirely up to you. Personally, attack speed is quite beneficial here, so I would be improving the Becca shield. The attack speed 1 isn't much, right? But it's not bad to have just for your overall effectiveness in combat to improve how quickly you attack. The other thing to point out is any of your other gear, like these leather gloves, etc., you do need hide. Now, if you do want hide, there is a vendor that we can go and chat to improve that. However, before we do that, we should put on our shield. But this lady here will actually, we can talk to her. And if you say you wanted to buy a different cloak that actually had defense on it, you could do so from here. It is a little bit expensive, but you could also buy some different boots, a headgear, as you don't have a headgear initially, but you do have a couple of options that you could grab. But I wouldn't necessarily be buying this. Maybe the cloak at this early stage, I did actually buy it for that extra +2 to defense. However, I do want to point out before we look at any other gear that there is a vendor that you can get gear for contribution. So in the castle up here on the hill, now you would have had to figure this out to get to chapter 2, but I will mention it here anyway, is that when the doors are shut like this and they won't let you in, you will need to make sure that you're wearing, in this case, the Hernandan attire that gives you access to the Hand Castle, which is what we're trying to enter. But you will find locations like this across the world that you need to be wearing a certain type of gear in order to be able to access it. So you will want to make sure you have those in your inventory so you can actually enter them. Later on, if you do increase your reputation with Hernan to a certain level, the gates will just be open and they'll know who you are and you won't have to go through this little cutscene. You'll be able to just enter straight away. But in the early game, they will have to check you out before they let you in through the gate. Now, this vendor through here is what we want to talk to. So this gentleman right here, if we open his shop, he will have gear that you can buy for contribution. As you can see in the top right, we currently have 7 contribution. So here at the moment with that 7, we could buy the Bolton Plate Helm, which does give us a +4. We could buy the Bolton Plate Armor, which gives us an additional 5 armor to the armor that we were already wearing, or the Bolton Plate Cloak, which is a +2, right? So you could buy this instead of the other cloak we were discussing. You can save up and buy these additional ones as well, like these gloves here are really good, so are the boots. These do take time, like you'll probably be in chapter 4 or 5 before you've got enough Hernan contribution to be able to buy these. In the early game though, if you're struggling, you can pick up one of these items for your contribution. And what we're actually going to do is pick up the plate cloak here. We can equip that, and now we've got this beautiful cloak. Even though it is dark, it's actually hard to see what this cloak looks like, but it does look nice. We're going to leave this location here now that we've got this cloak. It is this street over here is where you will find the tannery. So in case you aren't actually going out and hunting animals and farming them for their hide, you can actually buy it from this gentleman here. So say this thin hide, let's buy 4 of those. We'll say you thick hide, sturdy hide, as well as short hair hide. But we only really need the thin hide here, at least for now. And then we can return back to the smithy and use that to upgrade our existing gear. So here, say we could upgrade our leather gloves, our leather boots, or our leather armor for that thin hide that we did pick up. But if you remember, say if we're looking here, it only isn't the most effective leather gear that we do have. In this shop next door, we can actually talk to her and go buy. We can buy those leather boots that have additional attack compared to critical hit chance. We will do that. You could also buy a hat here if you did want a fancy hat. And in refinement here, we could improve our hat via the cloth pieces that we did actually pick up from those corpses. Now it's got defense on it as well. But we can also improve the boots. We can't improve the boots that we just bought, but we can improve our gloves and our leather armor. Additional attack is never bad, and we will do armor here rather than gloves again, just for that additional defense. As defense is much more important than it seems, even though they're small number increases. You will come across enemies that will do insane amounts of damage to you. Now, also, we could just improve our other leather boots here as well to give it some additional armor. But we're not wearing those, so it doesn't matter too much. So now for the moment, we're pretty much set. We've got a helmet that has armor and other effects on it. We've got a brand new cloak. We've got a new shield that's been refined. We've got a new sword that's been refined a couple of times. It gives us a massive increase to our overall damage. You can see our weapon attack is now 21. Our defense is 14. Everything is looking up really nicely, plus the amulet that we did grab as well. So from here, it's really up to you, and the world is your oyster. You've got a fantastic weapon, shield, some quality armor. You know where you can get better armor, either from the contribution vendor we were discussing, or by continuing into chapter 3 and beating Matthias and actually buying his armor from that vendor that we were just discussing below. But here you'll either be able to just continue the chapter 2 by going up over to the watchtower over here, which is a little bit of a tough encounter, so it is good doing all the stuff that we have just done to improve our overall effectiveness before we go over there, as there will be a lot of enemies to fight. But you're really, from here, you're set. You know how to craft, you know how to improve your gear, you know how to find new gear, and you also know how to do basically all of the stealing you could possibly want to do. So thank you guys for checking out this video and watching it to the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.